Okay, so just a quick heads up about the video you're about to watch. I screwed up the recording of the video and didn't record the gameplay footage properly. So what I've done is I've gone through and gotten the screen caps of the scene and tried to match them up with what I was saying throughout. So, you know, just a heads up, it shouldn't make a difference, but just in case it does, that's why. So, let's get started. Alright, and this is part 2 of my work in progress feedback video on Ydin Holder demo. So since this is a work in progress video, this is not going to be available for, general viewership. It's going to be primarily for you and whoever else you give this link to. So I'm not going to bother with a recap. So, yep. Okay, why are we not there we go. We must all work together to keep you alive, or else all the worlds of this round will be lost after all. So, she doesn't know if there's a way to save multiple worlds, but she knows if Suvi is not saved, all the worlds will be ruined, will be destroyed. Okay. On the eve of my 18th birthday, the Ydin will reside within me, can save one world. Didn't he just ask if it was possible to save more than one world? But now he's saying the Ydin can only save one world. Okay. Less than a year until then now. Okay, so he is about 17. What'll happen to me after that, anyway? I'd call that a good question. I don't know. Perhaps Kiros does, though. For now, I'll talk to Estelle more and find out where she stands. She saved my life, though, so I doubt she's one of the beings trying to destroy the Ydin. If that's how you feel, I'll trust your judgment, Suvi. You have a good head on your shoulders. Okay. Good heart, too. Partly because of your influence. I couldn't just abandon you. Suvi turned his back on the dryad, facing the pathway. That's exactly what I mean. You saved me, and I want to save others in return. And it's the right thing to do, isn't it? Before the boy could leave, Petula called out to him. Don't forget, we need to get you a new cell phone so you can get a hold of Kiros or me in an emergency. If that's the case, we should get Estelle one as well, since she's going to be our ally. Alright, we'll meet up after school then. Kiros too? Yes. You aren't alone in this, Suvi. We'll be there together. Petula's leaf hair finally changed color. Unless you were standing less than a foot away from her, you would never suspect that it wasn't human hair. After nodding, Suvi left the greenhouse. The blonde figure approached the greenhouse with caution. When she reached out to open the door, she was spooked by the sound of someone approaching from the interior. After quickly looking around, she dove behind a nearby trash pile. Okay. Suvi left the greenhouse and closed the door behind him while the blonde peeked out from behind the trash and watched him. The boy stopped and looked toward the trash pile, but his stalker swiftly hid. I could have sworn someone was there. So is he toying with her or honestly saying that? He glared at the garbage for a few moments before returning to his original heading. As he disappeared into the distance, the girl carefully poked her head out. Suvi sat at his desk and stared out the window. He was overcome with a familiar feeling. He knew he was being watched. Okay, answers that. He turned to the door in time to spot a person duck out of sight. He pondered if it was another student and quickly raised his hand to attract the teacher's attention. The unfamiliar girl huddled near the floor, slightly shaking before she calmed herself. Oh geez, he's really perceptive. Did he actually see me? She stood up and peered back into the classroom. See who? The blonde looked over her shoulder and found Suvi standing over her. He tilted his head questioningly at her expression as her expression became flustered, and she retreated backwards. I'm sorry? Without an explanation, the blonde ran off down the hallway. Whoa, she's fast. Is she the one who's been following me? The teacher opened the door, and Suvi's classmates glanced into the hallway. Why are you making a racket in the hall? Hurry and go to the washroom already. Didn't you see the girl who was staring into our classroom? What girl? When Suvi looked at his fellow student's face, he realized that no one else had seen the blonde. Students filed out of the main building at the head of the school day arrived. Students filed out of the main building as the end of the school day arrived. Hiding in the yard, a certain blonde stood watch. When she saw Suvi, she warily kept her eye on him. The boy glanced in her direction, but pretended not to notice her, instead heading off school property. As Suvi passed the gate, he waved to Kiros, who was on watch duty. Suvi, make sure to take care on your way home. I will. The blonde took a deep breath as her shoulders slumped. Tomorrow, for sure. Suvi sighed in relief when he realized the girl wasn't still following him. On his way home, he took a detour to the park. The area was now cordoned off with police tape, and officers stood the perimeter. A few civilians stood around, trying to sneak peeks at the damage left by the fire. He noticed that the orc and goblin bodies were already gone. He also spotted some black-suited men who looked to be straight out of a secret government organization movie. I swear, I can read. After a few moments, he moved on without anyone having taken notice of him. Suvi took off his shoes when he arrived at home. Estella, you awake? Yes, yeah. He followed the voice and found her sitting on the couch in the living room. The pair locked eyes. The lights were off and the room was somewhat dark. This house is really big and empty, isn't it? It certainly isn't meant for me to live in alone. Estelle thought over for a moment before coming to a realization. Oh, so that's what you meant when you said you had experience with people like me. Okay, does she infer that he thought she was a hooker? Is that what she was going for here? Suvi nodded as he sat across from her on the couch. Yesterday wasn't the first time I was targeted. No, I suppose they want to stop you before you come of age. The brunette looked down at her lap. I was chosen to be part of a group of witches dedicated to protecting the Ydin holder. We were trained specially, knowing that we'd one day be sent here. But I'm not anyone with talent. The others have always been better at everything. She clenched her hand into a fist. Okay, so what I'm hearing from that is everyone else was a specialist, she was a generalist, which meant she was better at adapting and innovating. At least that's my take on it. We were all supposed to protect you together and then convince you to save our world. I don't know how I can do it alone. I'm not special. I'm not the best at magic, and Estella looked at Suvi. I have no confidence that I can persuade you to save my world. That's an odd thing to say, Estelle. What do you mean? After all, if you're the only one who arrived here, and you succeeded in protecting me, doesn't that make you special? Estelle trembled slightly as she began to tear up. I don't know about the others, Estelle, but I know I want to trust you. You saved my life, after all. For now, how about coming with me to get acquainted with this world? There's still a year before I can save anyone with the power of the Ydin. Suvi stood and offered her his hand. Estelle hesitantly took it and stood up. Now then, we can't have you walking around in such strange clothes. Around here, people don't wear hats like yours or carry staves unless it's for a costume event. Estelle wiped her eyes before grabbing her staff. As a witch, I can't go anywhere without my staff, which is why we're all taught to do this. A magic glowed as her staff shrunk, and she tucked it into her pocket. How convenient. Estelle grabbed the brim of her hat and took it off. It's been a long time since I went out in public without this, but she placed it on the table. I'll have to make do, won't I? Brunette gave Suvi a sad smile. The companions arrived at the shopping district. Estelle's foreign clothes attracted some attention, but no one said anything about it. This world is strange. There are so many people and so little nature. What was your world like? A lot more open. More settlements were spread out and centered around castles or trading centers. This world wasn't so different 300 years ago. Actually, a lot of advancements have been made in the past century. Oh, then our worlds don't sound so different at the core. Come to think of it, there are legends about witches and wizards here, but no one in this age really believes they ever existed. Maybe they were travelers from your world. I'm here. It wouldn't be that strange for others to have visited too. Exactly. Estelle cracked a smile. So, what exactly are we out here to accomplish? Do the people of your world have devices for long-range communications? Well, witches can certainly make things capable of it, but they run out of the mana needed to function eventually. Here we have electronic devices that allow people to talk and share information instantaneously. Yesterday, before you showed up, mine was destroyed by those goblins. So I need a new one. And since you'll be in this world for a while, you should get one too. I don't know if I'll be able to afford one. Such devices are very expensive to create in my world, at least. It's not a matter of payment, Estelle. I'm sure you don't have any money yet, so it's just a matter of being able to work together. Is he saying he's going to steal one for her? With the people you said arrived before me? And here they are. The girl followed Suvi's gaze. Petula and Kiros were waiting for them up ahead. She slowly reached inside her pocket. I've known them longer than I've known you. You can trust them. Well, considering you've known her for about 10 hours, that's not a huge bar to surpass. To save my world means to doom others. How can I be friendly with the enemy? There's still time before anyone can be saved. If you all start out fighting, how can I consider saving any of you? She hesitated before taking her empty hand out of her pocket. I understand, if that's your wish. Okay. Good. Suvi and Estelle meet up with Petula and Kiros, who smiled widely. So, this is the witch who saved the day. Nice to meet you. I'm Kiros. I'm Estella Azula. Yes, thanks for saving Suvi. We'd usually be the ones there to protect him, but my phone was destroyed before I could call them. The Dryad nodded and bowed her head. Thank you. Estella hesitated before bowing as well. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't done it for selfish reasons. I understand. You came here to save your world, just like I did. Yes. The brunette's eyes glowed with magic for a moment. Ah, you're a Dryad. Yes, well, something similar. I'm called Petula. Estella looked at Kiros. No need to scan me. I'm a human from a world that isn't threatened in this round. I came here solely to provide support for the Ydin holder. I see. Those goblins from last night weren't the first to attack me, Estelle. They've been hunting me for years. Without these two, I'd be... But you're not. You're here, we all are, and we're here to save people and worlds, whatever that outcome might be. Estelle pensively turned to the older woman. It's the reason we prepared that house, where those who come as allies may have a chance to be saved. So that's why Subi lived alone in that mansion. The extra rooms are so those like you can be close to him and build trust. Then why don't you live there? In due time, I'll move in. I arrived here over a decade ago. I would have had an unfair advantage if I spent all that time together with Suvi. Okay. I'm not entirely seeing how you don't have that advantage already, but we'll roll with this. Your world is at stake, and you're risking its destruction in favor of equality? I am. All life is important, after all. We should have a fair fight. That's just how she is, Estelle. Now you understand why you can trust them, don't you? That reminds me. Kiros, is it really only possible to save one world? Kiros raised a hand to his chin as he looked to the sky. 1,000 years is a long time, Suvi. Many truths are lost over the course of such a length. I know not how the events of the last Ydin holder played out. Okay, I'm not going to tell you should change the script, but I feel like this line needs to be rewritten. Previous to this, Kiros sounded a lot more approachable, matter-of-fact, very human-esque. Here, he sounds like he's trying to do, you know, Mr. Miyagi by way of Yoda. So, I don't know, maybe it was the previous few lines were an aberration compared to the rest of the character, but this does strike me as out of character from what I've seen so far. According to historical records that did survive, however, a bloody battle took place between those that sought the Ydin holder's salvation, and only my world was saved. So you don't know either. Not for sure. My world doesn't have any surviving records of the previous Ydin holders beyond that. At the very least, I want it to be true that I can save more than one world. That's why I want everyone to be acquainted. Or at very least, not trying to kill each other. If this turns into a massacre, then it won't even be possible to attempt it. He's got a point. So that's why you've been preparing for our arrival. Estella clenched her hand into a fist. And yet, despite your consideration, none of the other witches arrived. Okay. Your world sent more than one representative? Estella nodded to confirm the question. Well, of course, each world treats the situation differently. The fate of their world is at stake at all. The fate of their world is at stake and all. Suvi, Kiros, and Petula noticed Estella's silence and glanced at one another. Well then, we came here for a reason. To get you 2 phones. This comment snapped Estella out of her silence. Yes, this so-called long-range communication device. You can call it a phone, a cell phone, or just phone. Let's go. Estella leaned over and examined the phones behind the glass. So these things are cell phones? Cell phones. Close enough. Just choose the one you like best and I'll show you how to use it when we get home. Whoa. Okay. So, I come from a retail background, specifically retail electronics. And... oh boy. So, cell phones, smartphones, anything above and beyond a basic, pick it up and talk to one specific person on the other end is such a radical departure from old style communications that telling someone, just pick the one you like best and I'll show you how to use it later. Okay. I really feel like this should lead to a problem. The 3 of them have cell phones that support iMessage, but she picks one that doesn't. So their default messaging app on their phone won't communicate with hers, for instance. And that leads to a communications issue or something of that nature. But it doesn't seem like cell phones are such this radical departure because, we've had them integrate into our culture for actually close to a quarter century now. The idea of apps, touchscreen, gestures, physical interface without tactile contact are common concepts. But if they don't have something similar to work from, those are going to be incredibly foreign concepts. So, like I said, I feel like this is foreshadowing for something, or should be anyway. Estelle furrowed her brow as she looked from one model to another. It took us forever to get a handle on those things. How long do you think it'll take her? Okay, nice to know I wasn't the only one thinking that. Aren't witches technical with magic? Doesn't it require years of study, learning about elements and runes? It should be easy for her, no? Okay. So... Alright, Petula, we're gonna have a chat later. I guess all that teaching you've done has brought you to understand human behavior? Unlike you, I can't rely on my physical capabilities. Really? I think you would have been a fine gym teacher. I'm a dryad, essentially a plant. I like nothing more than to stand still in the sunlight all day. Well, you have a lot more commitment to this world than I do. I need a room and board to survive, but you could survive for free camping out in a park or wherever. You say that knowing that I had to change. I do. Had you not, we probably wouldn't all be here right now. A moment of understanding passed between the adults. Suvi had picked out the cell phone he wanted, while Estella still struggled to make a decision. This one. He looked at the brunette choice. It was an older style of phone with a slide-out keyboard. A little outdated, but if that's what you want. Is that bad? Not at all. I wanted you to pick something you wanted. I'm glad you did. Good answer. Good answer. Estella smiled to herself as the boy got an employee's attention. With Petula's help, they bought the device and began getting them set up. Okay, I'm curious. What does Petula do that she has money for this? Now, hold it out like this. Suvi held the phone out, and Estella mimicked him. Then he reached over and pressed a few buttons on her keyboard. Okay. Kiros held his phone toward the girls, causing both devices to beep. What the? Afterwards, Petula did the same. Well, Miss Estella, I look forward to our future cooperation. Kiros bowed his head slightly before heading off. Estella hesitantly waved bye to the man. Finally, Suvi held his phone out, and Estella's beeped again. So, this pairs the devices? In a way, almost everyone has a cell phone, and it'd be near impossible to find your acquaintance's contact number without doing this. The witch furrowed her brow as she examined her cell phone. If you think it's complicated to figure out, you'd be surprised to hear how long it took me. Petula sighed. A plant learning science? Ridiculous. Now, don't pout. You can use it now, can't you? Suvi prayed at the altar while Petula and Estella watched from a distance. Is he praying to a deity? Perhaps. Does your world have gods? Estella nodded. Don't all of them? No. My world doesn't. We're all plants, really. We don't care much for spiritual faith. The brunette looked at Petula, trying to gauge her reaction. Why do you want to save your world, then? Why do you want to save your world, then? Okay. Do you really need a raise to save your home world? I love my family and I wish to see them continue to live. Okay, so this exchange kind of draws into question what the threat is, what the fight about the Ydin holders' abilities are. Stella's comment seems to infer that it's spiritual in nature rather than physical. But then Petula says, I love my family, I wish to see them continue to live. That implies that the threat is physical. So, yeah, more questions. The dryad looked at Estelle, but she avoided the woman's gaze. Yet, you help your enemy. That's right. I don't see any difference between peoples. As long as one of our worlds is saved, I'll be happy. Even if it's not yours? That's right. Kiros comes from a world that was saved, yet he still came here to protect the Ydin holder. My world may be at stake, but as long as one of our worlds survive, It will all be worth it. Suvi was greeted by a priest, and the two of them talked in the distance. So it's okay if I try to save my world? Why wouldn't it be? Estella stared at her hand, and the shrunken staff upon it. I was the weakest and least talented of the girls chosen to come here. She closed her fist around the stave. If I try and fail, I'll be responsible for the destruction of my world. The burden really is unfair, isn't it? Are you seriously just going to give up like that? We're enemies. Are you going to let me win? That's a bit unreasonable, don't you think? I came here to have an honest contest with the others who wish to save their homes. But if you're going to back down, I will not hesitate to take the prize. Estella hesitated to reply when Suvi stopped in front of them. Being a bit harsh, aren't you? The woman turned to Suvi. Our worlds are at stake, and there are those who seek to kill you before any can be saved. We have real enemies. There's still a year before this is over, and we have to be united to make it that far. What? What do you mean? Petula and Suvi glanced at each other for a moment. Remember what I said earlier, when you rescued me in the park? It wasn't the first time I've been attacked by beings from other worlds, Estelle. Right. When I first arrived 15 years ago, this child had already lost his family. The enemy had laid waste to the mall his family was visiting. I found him crying next to the bodies of his parents. Estelle glanced at Suvi, but he didn't meet her gaze. So you see, Estelle, the enemy has been planning for far longer than any of us have. If they planned that far ahead, why didn't they go for your parents before you were born? Because the Ydin doesn't work like that. It only manifests in the vessel after birth, and they didn't know where I'd be born. Even then, it only took them 2 years to find me. I got lucky. I found Suvi before they did, and I kidnapped him. I see. Then what happened to the enemy after that? This world isn't defenseless. The army of this country intervened and fought them off. Why isn't this army helping you now? I wish it were that simple. Despite the evidence of what happened, the truth was never announced publicly. At the time, I didn't understand this world, and Suvi was only a kid. I was still unable to look completely human. Everyone thought I was just a conspiracy theorist in a costume. And what conspiracy did they think she was spouting? That, Poison Ivy was going to take over the world? In the end, the best I could do was find a foster family for Suvi while I worked out becoming more human-like. Suvi and Petula appeared sad for a moment, which Estelle took notice of. And it became a cycle. If you want to save your world, Estelle, more enemies will come and we must fight them. When we first met, why did you help me kill the orc, Suvi? We would have died if I didn't. You could have run away alone. Why put yourself at risk for a stranger? Well, Petula raising me with the knowledge of the Ydin was a factor in my decision. The boy glanced up to the sky. Fate burdened me with the decision of condemning many worlds to death to save one. If there's really no way to save more, I at least want those who come here to survive. He closed his eyes for a moment, then turned to Estelle. Kiro said that a bloody battle took place between the people vying to save their worlds in the past. I didn't want those looking for salvation from me to kill each other. That type of thinking can't work. It'll be genocide for the losers. Yes, it will. But starting all of this with the mindset of letting you slaughter each other is just as flawed. There's still time, still a year. I can only hope that someone who knows more comes along in the meantime. The witch's expression was filled with doubt. If the other witches really didn't arrive here, I'm burdened with the fate of my world alone. The girl began to tremble a little. But if it's really too late to save my world, I will do as you ask and try to find another way. Suvi and Petula smiled. With this, there are 2 on board. Yeah, but how many more to come? The Dryad checked the sky for the time and nodded to herself. You 2 should head back. Before that, what should I do in this world for the next year? I understand that we must work together to survive, but there's only so much that can be done. What do you want to do? I wanted to learn more about this place, so I chose to study and appear like a human. In doing so, I've used the past 15 years to prepare Kyros, myself, and that house. I also came to understand plenty, and more importantly, learned what our options to protect Suvi were. Estelle thought as Petula waved goodbye and headed off. Let's head back. The brunette nodded. Wearing her witch hat once more, Estelle cast a spell, and a chest appeared in the center of the room. Oh, that's interesting. What is it? My magical wardrobe. Every witch has to learn to use this spell to store their possessions. Estelle opened the chest, and a door, which was taller than the chest, rose from inside it. She opened the door, which swung into a new room. Suvi looked on both sides of the door in utter shock. Spatial manipulation? Spatial manipulation? I guess, in a way, that could be considered accurate, but it's a fairly basic spell that attaches a room to a movable object and anchors it. Estelle entered the doorway, and Suvi followed her. Well, that's one way to carry home with you. All manner of glass bottles and books lined the shelves. Above them, a glass lamp hung from the ceiling and flickered to life, as if sensing the duo's presence. On the far end of the room, a fireplace with a cauldron remained unlit. The wall adjacent was filled with specimens in jars. Estelle moved to the bookshelf and browsed the titles as Suvi looked around in awe. So this is what a real witch's storehouse looks like. I thought you said you didn't have magic in your world. Excuse me. No, but we have fiction. Fiction? You know, like stories that are made up, plays and acts. Curious. My world usually isn't peaceful enough to indulge in such things. Interestingly, most fiction in our world isn't derived from peacetime. Speaking of which, is this a doorway to your world? The girl shook her head as she took a book from the shelf. No, this is part of my workshop, but I used a combination of spells to bind it to the chest. Then, the monarchy's royal witches stocked our wardrobes with supplies. So the other girls have their own places like this too. They did, and they had much higher quality materials too. Oh Lord, Estelle, stop being down on yourself. Estelle took the book to her desk, cleared off a space, and opened it. She flicked her hand, and the chair slid across the room, stopping behind her, and she sat down upon it. They were all talented and proficient in their abilities. Each of them were more suited to this task than I. You really do have a high opinion of them. They're better than me. That's all there is to it. A few moments of silence passed while Suvi looked around. The dryad said we still had time to prepare, right? Her name is Petula. Petula, sorry. The spells you saw me use when I first arrived were just that. Emergency quick cast spells. We witches use catalysts to cast more powerful spells, which is why they stocked us with such a grand amount of materials. So this is like a workshop. Yes. Estella tapped on her book and marked a page with her magic. She looked at the shelves and nodded towards several ingredients. Just following recipes and spells isn't enough. A witch's experience matters a great deal as well. Magic comes from knowledge, and without it, even the most basic of spells. She hesitated and lowered her head. It's something I lack. Well, you got a year to gain it. Suvi moved behind the brunette and hugged her. What are you doing? You're not alone, Estelle. You made it here and saved me. Being the only person doesn't make me the best. Anyway, perhaps not, but you're more valuable than you think you are. Suvi gave her one last squeeze before letting go and heading to the door. I don't plan to die, so take your time and figure out what you want to do. The boy disappeared, leaving Estelle to touch where he had embraced her. Suvi glanced around, looking one way, then the other. Suvi doesn't look like that blonde girl is around this morning. Alright, I'd forgotten about her. He started down the street towards the school, glancing at his new phone. He navigated to his contacts. After staring at the names for a few moments, he pocketed the device. Petula's taken care of me for this long. for as long as I can remember. Estella saved my life before even talking to me. Just telling either of them I've chosen the other girl, so say goodbye to your world would be too cruel. Not to mention whoever else might show up. Kyros might not be after the Ydin, but he came here to make sure that I live long enough to save someone. Then there are those who wish me dead to doom all of them. Who benefits if that... What benefit is that of to them, though? Surely some of them lived in doomed worlds of their own. Working together is the obvious solution. Something is wrong with this entire situation. 10 years and I'm no closer to figuring it out. Yeah, well, I've got a few questions too, so I'm right there with you, Suvi. Suvi touched his chest. I can feel the Ydin waking up, changing me. Will I still exist once its power is used? Will exhausting the Ydin extinguish me? He stopped and looked to the sky. My family was already taken from me. Will I even have anything left once this is over? As a breeze blew past, Suvi turned his attention to a flower growing by a power pole. Kyros will go home once everything is decided. And Petula, if her world is saved, she'll return there. That's why she came here, to save her home. Estella said her world sent many girls, but only she appears to have arrived. That workshop of hers is the hope of her people. If I doom her world by picking Petula, will she go to die with her people, or will she be stuck on Earth, a foreign world as the only witch in existence? And if using the Ydin kills me, not even I will be there for her. That will be true of everyone else that shows up too. Suvi clenched his hand into a fist and started walking again. Oops. Is there no move that saves everyone? If using the Ydin kills me, not using it will doom all of them. Do I value my own life? The boy shook his head. I want to live, but saving an entire world means saving countless other lives. No matter what I choose, it's genocide for someone, most likely many. 7 worlds died so Kyros could live. That is all the concrete information we know. He looked ahead and came to a stop at the crosswalk. Kyros and Petula might not have more information, but Estella should, as well as whoever else shows up seeking salvation. If we can just get a few more pieces of the puzzle. A purple-haired girl stares at Suvi from across the street. The boy's eyes meet her blank expression, their gazes crossing. As the walk sign comes on, the pedestrians cross the road. Suvi keeps his eye on the girl as they get closer to one another. Okay. She walked past him without showing any interest, but he glanced back at her before continuing to the other side of the road. Suddenly his phone chimed with a text message, so he took out his phone to check in. Unknown text message. I'll be in touch. Okay. Suvi looked across the street to the mysterious girl, who stared at him for a moment before turning and vanishing into the crowd. Okay, Tabayachi. For the purpose of this demo, you will be fast-forwarded to a point in the story where all the love interests are available. Okay, so I think this is going to be a good point to end this video. Based on what you told me, I was kind of expecting to get all the gameplay done in 2 videos. I guess I talked more than I thought I would.